You're watching The Open Sketchbook, a show for anyone who wants to be a little more creative, produced by Rooster High. Welcome to Season 2. In Season 1, I posted the results of my own creative practice in the form of short audio fiction, and in Season 2, I'm interviewing successful creatives about their journeys. I'm your host, Zach Armstrong. Welcome back, dear listener, to another interview episode. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing somebody I got to work within the theatrical context and then cheer on from afar as she made some amazing work. She is Lauren Shippen, the creator of the Bright Sessions, a project she started as she was trying the LA acting thing, and then she decided, what if instead of just acting, I wrote, directed, produced, and acted in, and then won a lot of awards with an audio drama about teens in therapy who happen to have supernatural abilities. After this, getting millions of downloads and many awards, she went on to direct an official Stranger Things podcast. She wrote Bridgewater, executive produced by Aaron Mahnke of Lore and featuring a whole lot of A-list names. I'm not going to start listing here because then I wouldn't stop. And of course, also, she's the author of 3 novels set in the universe of the Bright Session. So, Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to talk to you.
You too. We had the pleasure of going to college together.
Yes.
And then I had the pleasure of finding the Bright Sessions as you were wrapping it up narratively. And we, I saw how many accolades it had gotten by the time my wife and I got around to it. And then we listened to it, and it was so up our alley that we just adored the entire thing. So first off, just thank you for doing the work for you and all of those people you've worked with to put that out into the world.
No, thank you for listening.
It's a blessing.
I'm so glad you found it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. So, listener, if you have not checked out the Bright Sessions, I'll put a link in the description. So please go. It's okay to be late. You're never actually late.
Oh, yeah. That's the wonderful thing about audio fiction is that, there's no time limit on it, like so many podcasts, right? It's always topical. It's always relevant. You can always find it and listen to it.
That's right. That's right. And something about the Bright Sessions, of course, listener, is that, we've got a video component to these interviews because I like to put things on YouTube. However, when you keep something just audio only and you're telling a story, that puts a lot of specific kinds of constraints on the story, right? If you've got visuals, you have whatever aspect ratio you've got to work with to deliver more information. But if you're just working in audio, you just have that space of noise to use to tell your story, right? So, Lauren, when you first started working on the Bright Sessions, what were some of the reasons that you chose to create it as just audio?
Yeah, I really believe in sort of limitations being the mother of invention, right? I think that having creative limitations can be a wonderful place to start, or even just resource limitations, which is really where I was starting. I was, as you said, doing the acting thing in LA and really wanted to make my own thing so that I could have a character that I could dig into and that I could kind of explore on my terms. And I had, at the time, was in a friend's web series, and the web series was really, really fun. It's called Natural 20. It was about a D&D group. And it was all, it was like a cast of 5 with some guest folks, 3 producers, 1 writer, and in 1 room. And just seeing the amount of resources that went into just that, right? Like just a web series with, 5 to 15-minute episodes that all take place in 1 apartment. Like, it was crazy, right? The amount of stuff and money that you needed to do that. And so even just looking at that, I was like, I can't do this. I can't even make a 1-room web series. But at the time, I had also discovered Welcome to Night Vale, which, of course, is one of the oldest and most beloved fiction podcasts and the entry point for a lot of people who got into the space. I'm still a huge fan of that show and everything from Night Vale Presents. And I was a music major in college and, had done some audio editing through that and thought, okay, maybe I can kind of do something audio only. Like, I've got, a friend who's got a mic that I can borrow. I've got all these great actors that I'm in acting class with. And I know what sort of the anatomy of a 2-person scene should look like because I'm in acting class every single week doing 2-person scenes. And so that's really why it was audio, is because I just didn't have the resources for anything else. And I liked Welcome to Night Vale.
Honestly, that That is honestly the answer I expected.
Yeah.
Because, and what you said is so true, that the restrictions, when you take the restrictions seriously and you still want to create, they're going to force you to get better.
Yeah.
And to get better to the point where you can really make something fantastic with whatever restrictions you have. I've been doing some work for a local film festival, and there's a gentleman who has never become an A-lister, but he has written, directed, and produced a movie called A Cell Phone Movie about an out-of-work actor who makes a movie on a cell phone. And the entire movie was made on a cell phone.
That's awesome.
And just watching the trailer, I am so excited to watch this film because the energy in the trailer is just brilliant.
Yeah.
And it makes the exact same point, really, that the Bright Sessions does. That it's like, hey, we're in an age where, like, you can scrape together the resources to make something. Maybe you're not going to make a 2-hour film on what you have right now, but maybe you can make an audio narrative, right?
Exactly. And that's my acting studio that I was in at the time, where a lot of the Bright Sessions cast came from, was very encouraging of us doing that, right? Because this was the height of sort of web series being like acquired by HBO, and like Tangerine, an Oscar nominated movie that was filmed all on an iPhone. And so there was very much this feeling of like, yes, you can do, with just like the technology in your hand, you can accomplish a lot if you come at the story in the right way.
Absolutely. So once you've locked into telling something in just audio, right? So beyond the natural limitations of, okay, I'm an LA actor, I got to make a project and make it awesome, and this is all I can make. When you go into the creative mode, to start to write for it, to start to work with a sound designer, the Misha Stanton, the amazing sound designer, they're the amazing sound designer of Bright Sessions, absolutely fantastic work. What is special about writing and creating when you just have audio to deliver the information in?
Yeah, I mean, Misha was such an incredible addition to the team. And I met them actually because they were doing their own podcast, Ars Paradoxica, which is fantastic. And they'd heard an announcement on the Bright Sessions stream that I wanted to start a Patreon to get money to hire a sound designer. And then they reached out and they were like, I'm also in LA, like, let's get coffee. And we just hit it off. And then they started sound designing the show halfway through season 2. And what was amazing is, and you hear this in the show, I mean, you hear the sound become a lot better. I fully engineered and sound designed the first 16 episodes, and you can tell. And I've done what I can this year for the 10th anniversary. I sort of did what I could to the first 16 episodes to at least get the levels right and everything. So the audio is a bit better in the feed now than it was even a year ago, but it's still not much. But what was
Bright
amazing,
Sessions remastered.
Yeah, Bright Sessions remastered, sort of. Like, it's just at the right volume now, basically. Because, like, I didn't even have any of the original, like, audio files. Like, I couldn't go back and, like, find, like, the,
wow.
Yeah. So, or I found the original raw audio, but I couldn't find the original, like, sessions. And so I'd have had to re-edit it all. And
Amazing.
But the thing that was amazing about Misha joining is that all of a sudden I could step outside of the therapy room and I could kind of expand the storytelling, because it is all therapy sessions in the beginning, because, like, okay, 2 people sitting in a room is something that I can sound design because I can just record 2 people sitting in a room, and that's what it was. And then when Misha came aboard, it was like, wait a second, okay, I could have multiple rooms. We could go out into, like, the lobby of the office. We could go outside. And you really hear that expand. And I think what was so exciting to me and sort of talking with Misha and listening to their podcast and, you know, kind of getting their perspective on storytelling and audio was like, oh, I can do anything that I want. And the only restrictions that I have are the ones that I've already set up in the story. And so in Bright Sessions, it's that you're hearing everything through sort of recorded audio, which eventually I kind of abandon. Right. But it takes me a while. I sort of work up to it.
Yes.
And then eventually we're doing a musical episode in someone's dream, and it's like all bets are off. But you know, this is something that, like, I've played around with a lot in a lot of my different work, and something that I've really had to, like, drive home to a lot of the larger companies that I work with and people who are new to the medium, which is like, you can do whatever you want. Like, Misha and I actually made a show for Marvel that was an adaptation of the 1995 book. I think it was 1995, Marvels, the graphic novel. And
yes.
Misha got to sound design, the Silver Surfer coming through a sky of fire, right? Like, you can do that stuff. And it's just about how you communicate it to the audience. And so that's, I think, for me, always the fun puzzle piece is like, okay, I want to, I'm trying to think of like a good example. I want to do some sort of big splashy set piece, but that actual sound doesn't sound really like anything on its own. And so how do I get at that same emotion through some other way? Or how do I get at that same set piece, without sort of the characters being like, oh my God, the car just exploded or whatever it is, right?
Right. How do you show that instead of telling it directly?
Exactly. And that's like always a really fun like jigsaw puzzle for me.
Absolutely, because it's a jigsaw puzzle where your jigsaw canvas is so much smaller because you don't have and visual people, don't be offended, this is just for the context of the conversation. Like, you don't have the crutch of being able to say, oh, we can just blow the car up on screen.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
It's like, okay, the car is going to blow up, but do we have an explosion sound? And this is why you need a Misha Stanton.
Exactly.
Do we just have the explosion sound? Is it appropriate for a particular character to go, oh my gosh, that car just blew up and it looks like it was a bomb? Like, well, probably not, because that feels a little on the nose, unless that character is being really suspicious. Like,
right, exactly. Well, and I think too, it's like you can have fun with, in a visual medium, you're sort of you're seeing everything, right? And so like, you get sort of all the information right away. I mean, obviously, like, this is where like really creative direction and great directors have a lot of fun with like what you can see and what you can't see. But I think what can be fun in audio sometimes, something can be there the entire time, but until the characters acknowledge it or it makes a sound in some way, the audience doesn't know that it's there. And so that's always something that I'm thinking about too. And I haven't worked a lot in comedy as a writer, but that's something I'm always thinking about of like, how can you have fun with that? How can you find a comedic moment with like there being an elephant in the room that the audience can't see until somebody acknowledges the elephant in the room?
And I guess maintaining some kind of whatever consistency that's needed to justify that elephant, even though you haven't mentioned it.
Right.
And then the audience goes, oh, like, I don't feel cheated, but I am surprised.
Yeah.
In the most delightful way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I've made it a lot of the way through Bridgewater now. Of course, I listened to all the Bright sessions. There's a lot of moments that you build up to, and the ones I've noticed have a lot of punch when you're writing them are moments of belief being challenged about a character's belief being challenged about themselves or about the world, right? Which we're set up for in Bright sessions. It's, teenagers going through therapy, and the supernatural part gave just so much fictional room to explode out into, which is so fun. I also think the show would have had its core without superpowers because of how beautifully written the therapy was.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Yes, with the exception I know this is on the FAQ that yes, it's fictional therapy, it's not real therapy, but right, like toss that out there, before Lauren goes, well, hold on. But because all the time you hear those characters being challenged on like, hey, look at this in yourself. And the character goes, ah! Or on Bridgewater, right, Misha Collins is playing an academic whose view of the world is being challenged, and he keeps knocking on doors and going, no, I don't believe in that, but let's keep going, right? So tell me, what have been some of your favorite moments to create, whether they come with belief being challenged or not? What are some of the favorite moments that when you've crafted them and looked back and you've seen the audience react, you go, yes, that felt so good to be able to deliver this moment in just audio?
Ooh, that's a great question. And that's such a lovely observation, too. I don't know that I would have necessarily pinned belief as like a thing that I certainly in Bridgewater, like I'm directly engaging with like skepticism versus belief, right? But I think that that's absolutely true. Like that is sort of a central part of the Bright sessions as well. And I think of a lot
that may
of
be some of my own framing that I've brought as an audience member to these things.
I
right?
think that's accurate. And I think one of the reasons that the Bright sessions like resonates with a lot of different people is that like it can sort of be like a kaleidoscope for whatever you are interested in, or there's enough characters to potentially like like find something you can
You're
connect
going to
to
identify
one of
with
them.
somebody.
You can identify with somebody. But I think for me, like the moments that really stand out are always the moments that have to do with the actors that I'm working with. And I'm actually like currently in the midst of casting my next original, and I'm really excited. It's been a while since I've sort of been through the casting process.
2000 and late in pre-production with Atypical Artists.
Yes, exactly. And what's so exciting to me is like I've fully completed half the season of 2000 late, and I'm sort of putting the finishing touches on the back half. But like nothing's locked, because once the actor gets in there, like I'm going to change a bunch of stuff, right?
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened with like Bridgewater. Like even though we wrote the first season before we cast it, just because of the nature of like how most production goes, is you kind of need to do that because you only have a limited number of days with somebody. You need to make sure it's all locked before you send it to them, etc. When we got to do second season, it's like, Misha and I like talked about like what we wanted to see for Jeremy, and kind of what we wanted to see for the story, and the things that interested him about the storyline and everything. And that's something I just always love doing. This is a long walk for a short sip of water, but I think for me, like the things that are so special about audio is the fact that like you're not seeing the actor's face, you're not seeing their costume, you're not seeing the body language, you're not seeing the set around them, and it's all in their voice. And so I think that creates, I mean, we throw around the word intimacy a lot in podcasting to the point that it's like almost like a joke now, right? But it is like, it's intimate. I think for me, like two of my favorite moments that sort of stick out are, I mean, everything with Mark and Joan, the siblings in the Bright Sessions, Dr. Bright and her brother.
Yes.
Julia and Andrew are just two of the finest actors that I've ever worked with. And they have this ability to just like make their voices crack just a little bit. And it's devastating every single time.
Yes.
And so I think for me, one of my favorite moments, and actually it's funny, I've been re-listening to this a little bit. I haven't listened to very much of the Bright Sessions since making it, because for lots of reasons. But for our 10th anniversary, we're putting together a vinyl pressing of the musical episode, which I'm extremely excited about.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to get on that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And I like listened back to the musical episode to try and figure out like, because actually all of it's not going to fit on one side. So I sort of like, all right, where's like intermission in this episode, right? And the song that Mark sings and sort of the conversation that he has with Joan before that song is, I think, one of my favorite moments, because it's like, it's happening in a dream. It's a musical, like nothing about the setting like needs to make sense or is visual, and it's all in the music, and it's all in Andrew and Julia's voices, and just like the pain that you feel when you listen to them, even though you're not seeing the pain on their faces. And so that's I think one of my favorite moments. And then similarly with Misha and Alan in the second season. And I didn't direct the second season, but there's just so much stuff in that I just like really, really love. The father-son relationship, just the pain that you can feel with, these two actors, who just really like are such wonderful scene partners, like they just give so much to their scene partner. And so putting them together is like just potent.
That's amazing. That dynamic of writing something, preparing it with a vision, and then at the part of the creative process where somebody else comes in, and then figuring out how it can warp to something better than the sum of its parts, because now there's an actor in there, is so amazing. And you mentioned the web series you were a part of that was a tabletop role-playing game themed thing.
Yeah.
And I've had a habit for years. I nearly fell out of my chair kind of laughing with joy when you mentioned that, because I've been a game master for about a decade now.
Oh, amazing.
And yes. And one of my, I won't call it a signature thing because other people do it, but something I do is when we can tell we're getting to the last act of the campaign and we're going to wrap it up, and we know there's like one more arc, it's going to be a few more months of playing, is I sit down with each player and I say, write down a list of 3 things you want your character to accomplish. It can be super specific, from I want to have a reconciling conversation with, Jane Doe, so-and-so, or, or it can be more general. And I ask them to write down this list. And I work those in ways towards the end of the campaign to really help deliver them a moment that is fully theirs. And sometimes in a way they didn't expect. So I'll save those stories for
love that.
another podcast. And it's just so beautiful. And we've had some of the most powerful moments of players interacting with those moments when I'm able to take something they contributed and say, okay, now let me gift this to you in the most beautiful possible way I can think of towards the end of this story. Whether you love being sad and meaningful things, or this is just a joy, like, straight up, don't worry, nobody's family is dead. You're all okay. It's fine. Stable relationships. So as you said that, I had not thought about, because I have not really in the narrative space at all for podcasts. I'm like, what a beautiful way to incorporate that so that the art is elevated through collaboration that way. That's so beautiful.
Well, and I think I love that you do that, because that's exactly what I did sort of between seasons for the Bright Sessions. I sat down with my actors and was like, okay, like, here's where I think we're at with your character. Like, what do you think? And I think what's so important about audio fiction and actors in particular is, I mean, like, I can think of lots of like TV shows, for instance, where like I grew very, very frustrated because the show was clearly like ignoring actor chemistry in some way, or like had made a decision that like they had to stick to, despite the fact that like actor chemistry pushed them in another direction. Like How I Met Your Mother probably being one of the most famous examples of this, right?
Yes, everybody listening and participating has their own list in their heads right now.
Exactly. And then you have other things like, Breaking Bad, in which Jesse's, supposed to die at the end of the first season, but they saw Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul together, and it was like, oh, this is the whole show. It's about these two people and their relationship together. And so like, and I think it's so important to follow those leads that your actors are creating in any medium, but I think especially for audio, like at the end of the day, like obviously you want the script to be great, depending on exactly what the story is. I mean, the sound design is always crucial, and like I consider, my sound designers the same type of collaborator as I do my actors, right? But like absolutely. At the end of the day, the thing that your audience is connecting to, and the reason that nonfiction, chat podcasts are so popular, is the person's voice and is the person who's communicating the words. You can have the best script in the world, and if your actors aren't good, it's not going to do anything for the listener. And so I think that like really like letting my actors guide me is something that like I just feel so privileged to get to do, and to get to sort of work with people who really have a perspective on their character. And yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of the job for sure.
Tell me about, because this was something I hadn't thought about before you mentioned it. So we mentioned the narrative conceit for the Bright Sessions of everything you're hearing is recorded, right? So there was this, and that it sounds like that came from a few places, as in like, well, to keep the scope simple, and then I can fully execute on this scope, right? Like I am now fully equipped to execute on this particular scope. And then you talked about, as the seasons went on, and your sound designer was diving in, and eventually you started to leave that behind. I don't even have this question written down. I'm just fascinated. Tell me about the thought process as you said, okay, I've had this narrative conceit of everything you're hearing is recorded, up to the point where you have, the therapy teenagers like turning on their phone, recording thing while they're hanging out on a park bench, pretending to be spies, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And then tell me about your thought process as somebody who is in the middle of creating a show, writing, collaborating to make this thing. Tell me about the thought process where you said, okay, it is now okay for me to leave that conceit behind.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in that the conceit initially came from the restriction of the scope, right? And I think specifically, it was in part the fact that like all of the audio dramas that I, was sort of familiar with, which was, like Welcome to Night Vale and Wolf 359 and, we all kind of had a conceit at the beginning. And that's something that I still think absolutely can work. And like, it's something that I always encourage people to steer away from if they don't feel that they need it. But I also don't have like a sort of any issue with it. Whereas I think some of my colleagues, are a little bit tired of it. But I think absolutely as a conceit, it can still work. But also crucially, like I wanted there to be an excuse for the audio sounding bad. Because like I just didn't have a very high quality mic, and I didn't really know how to engineer, how to record. And so I was like, well, if she's recording this on a hidden recorder in her office, the audience will be more forgiving. And what's astonishing is that even now, 10 years later, when people find the show, there's so much amazing stuff that you can listen to in fiction podcasting that sounds fabulous from the very first second.
Yeah.
The Bright Sessions is not one of those shows. It sounds fabulous starting when Misha joins the show, but I never ever get comments from anybody about the beginning of the show sounding bad, which is crazy.
Absolutely.
And
I've never had that thought. I'm not going to be going back and listening
but
with
it
the
does.
inside
It sounds
knowledge.
bad. Like, obviously the actors are fantastic, but the actual quality of the sound is bad. But I do think that people are very, very forgiving because of the conceit of the show. And then, having Misha and getting to explore more with them and sort of, I think, discovering the edges of that restraint. I think sort of season 2, season 3, I started to feel really I'm outgrowing my terrarium here. Like, I want to get out of it. And then, I think it was before the beginning of season 3. Evan Cunningham, another friend from college, actually, we were in Double Take together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been to many of those a cappella concerts.
Yep. He moved out to LA, and he is an incredible musician, and he started composing all of the sort of ad music and credits music for the Bright Sessions. And we still are frequent collaborators. He's composed to most of the music on my shows. And
Amazing.
We made the musical episode together. And the musical episode was really sort of working with Evan and just I'm a huge, right? Because you saw me in musical things in college. I'm a huge musical theater person, and I really I really wanted to do one. And
right. Yes.
And I'd written this song for Sam just out of a conversation with our mutual friend Megan Fitzmartin. We were sort of just talking about the concept of foolishness, and this was between this was sometime in season 3. I didn't know that I was actually going to do a musical episode, but I sort of had this idea floating around, but I didn't know how to do it. And then I was having a conversation with Ben Acker of the Thrilling Adventure Hour, which is a wonderful, wonderful, long-running sort of staged radio play variety show that you can listen to in podcast form. We were just sort of chatting about stuff, and I sort of expressed this frustration to him, and he was like, and I was like, there's just no way to make it work. I obviously would have to break the conceit, but then also there would have to be a reason for it being I just don't know how to do that. And he was like, well, I don't know. Could there be somebody who can go into people's dreams as an atypical ability and it can be a musical dream? And I was like, Ben, you're brilliant. And that's what we did.
Amazing.
And so it's even though it completely broke the conceit of the show, it still was operating within the rules of the world, right? Of
yes, absolutely.
People are not just bursting into song randomly. There's a reason for this. It's all taking place in a dream. And this person who we've gotten to know over the course of half a season who can go into people's dreams is sort of witnessing this. And so, yeah, I really just decided to kind of stretch the rubber band and then just let it snap, right?
Absolutely. And I think that journey makes so much sense to me because as I was thinking about Bright Sessions and when I did my little narrative exercise, a conceit like that was attractive to me because it helps keep the scope, like you said, small and achievable, so that you say, okay, if I'm just painting a small canvas, I have the resources to do my best art inside of this small canvas because I'm not going to be resource constrained going further. And of course, as the show grew, I think, if I'm understanding correctly, you got really more and more paintbrushes and the canvas could get bigger.
Exactly.
And you said, I really want to use all these other tools instead of having to shove everything into here because as the collaborations have grown, as the resources have grown, we can now pour more into this and do even more with it. So I see the use of that conceit for somebody who wants to keep the scope here. And for somebody like me I've created in several different ways, but my creative projects that are out in public are all much smaller and not many of them are really finished. And the conceit is attractive because if we can keep it, about that size, then we can go finish it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Then we can go finish it and we can say, here is a piece of art.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I was thinking about when I did this creative exercise because I was like, well, what if I kept the scope small and all the audio just happened through recordings in, a militarized mech suit between pilots and then recording a log for later.
Yeah.
So I was always thinking about the Bright Sessions when I put that together. And this conversation has been very enlightening for thinking about how is that conceit best used, right? Because I'm sure the industry folks are like, oh, the motivated audio conceit. whew, like I can get tired of that. But I know for me and a whole lot of other normies who like still have audio podcasts that they need to go find, right? That's going to be something.
Well, and I like, yeah, and it's something that I still play with myself, and like,
Yeah.
I think it absolutely works in your project extremely well, and I think that that limited scope can be a real gift, and I think you can have a very limited scope even without sort of the motivated audio. But I do think that like from a sound design perspective, like it creates a richness in the world that is so immediate. Like you sort of immediately know the environment that you're in. And I think that can be a little bit harder to accomplish. Like another very limited in scope and also very large in scope project. I've done these. If you allow me to go on a little tangent for a moment,
please.
I've done these two projects over the last 2-3 years. I don't even remember when I started Breaker Whiskey. But the first was a motivated audio thing, which is I wanted to do a show.
Breaker Whiskey is the post-apocalyptic audio journal, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's somebody calling out on a CB radio, then actually record it on a CB radio so that I don't have to do any sound design.
Amazing.
It's great. It's so fun. And I'm not really, I do like 2 episodes a month now, one of which is always a listener message.
You play with listener call-ins in a fun way with that, don't you?
Yes, yeah. So one episode a month is a listener message. And sometimes
they're like a character, basically.
Yeah, and it's totally like
Amazing.
they just submit it, and it's me being like, you tell me what's going on in like your timeline, in your world, in your apocalypse or whatever.
That's fantastic.
And then like I just sort of improvise a response. But for the first year, it was,
how's your apocalypse?
Yeah, how's your apocalypse? The new greeting. But the first year it was I did kind of what you've done, the consistent art practice, where I did 5 episodes a week for a year, which was really, really fun and like really challenging. Yes. And like that, I think like the CB radio, calling out breaker, like that very much has like that immediately places you in a place and time, right? You like immediately know kind of like where you are and kind of and even as the world gets built out around that, like it, for me, the recorded audio in that worked really well. The other project that I'm doing sort of consistently is a project called New Year's Day, which is a yearly podcast. It comes out once a year.
Right.
On New Year's Day. And it really is just like, I basically came from like, well, I'm doing Breaker Whiskey. What's the opposite of a daily podcast? A yearly podcast. I've been wanting to write something for Andrew and Brigham, who are both in the Bright Sessions, for years.
Yes.
Like the 3 of us have wanted to work on something. And I think what's interesting about that is there is no audio conceit. Like you're just dropped into wherever you are. But it's still very, very constrained. It is still these 2 people having a conversation on New Year's Day. And that is just over the course of decades, right? There are 2 immortal magicians that sort of meet up every 13 years on New Year's Day to catch up. And so like I think that it can be very useful to find constraints in whatever way you can, right? For me with New Year's Day, it was like, well, I have to tell all of the story in 1 episode a year for 10 years. Like that has to, I have to plan that out.
It's great practice at not being heavy-handed while still delivering as much as you can. Yeah,
exactly.
That's so cool. I
exactly.
love that.
And also like I have to give a sense of like mood and time period and vibe without any kind of framing device, without any kind of like, there's no narration. There's no banner saying they're in Chicago and it's 1893, right? Like it just
no title card.
Yeah, it just like you have got the title of the episode, which gives you date and time, right, or year and time.
Oh,
but
sure.
like you don't know where they are at any given moment, and so like that's been really, really fun to do, because that's a type of constraint that I hadn't really experimented with before, and has been really, really fun and continues to be fun because I'll be doing it until 2030. Oh, sorry, 2033.
Yeah. 2033.
Got 8 more years.
That's right. What a project to sign yourself on for.
I mean, we'll see. Like, anything could happen. We could, the internet could collapse in the next 5 years and there's no way to distribute it. But I'm going to keep making it as long as I can.
That's right. Yeah, that's HBO. You want to sign which of my shows?
Okay, but you can only do 1 episode a year. And that's honestly what TV feels like a little bit now.
You mentioned doing a regular kind of a disciplined practice of creating Was it 5? You were creating 5 episodes a week for a year?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that mostly like a creative discipline, like for repetition and practice in that space?
Yeah. Basically, I just sort of had the goal of like, okay, you're writing 2,000 words every single week because each episode is between like 1 and 5 minutes on average. And so, sort of 500 words per episode was kind of like what I was looking for, 400 to 500 words per episode. Wait, is that how that math works? I can't remember exactly what it was. But yeah,
This is a show for creatives. They're not going to check or no.
Great. Perfect. And now just sort of like setting up an editing cadence as well, and kind of, like planning things out. And I think one thing that was really helpful for me is I knew I wanted it to be one voice. I knew I wanted it to be something that I sound designed entirely myself, right? Which is why I decided CB Radio, because I was like, I can just order a CB Radio off of eBay and record through that, which is what I did.
Amazing.
But then also, like, I made it a road trip because A, I love road trips, and B, when I was out of ideas, it was like, well, okay, where in the country is she? Like, can she go see something that would have existed in 1965 before her timeline branched? Like 1968. God, I don't even remember the details of my own show. And that was really fun because it's like having sort of like a literal road that I was putting her on helped kind of keep that creative practice up by providing inspiration that was just like out there in the world.
Yes. You've seen Arrival, I assume.
Yes, love Arrival.
Yes, spoilers for Arrival for anybody. It's been out long enough. But I think what's happening to you is what happens to the main character in Arrival, where you've written enough time travel now that your brain is going to start time traveling. Like Lauren Shippen yourself, you're going to start time traveling like the main character in Arrival starts to see across time as the language shapes
that's exactly it.
It's my professional diagnosis as a fiction enjoyer.
Eventually, your brain does just become mush about your own stories.
Yes, absolutely. As somebody doing that on the business side and doing SEO because I need to, not because I want to. Yeah, my brain is mush with keywords and things like that. Yeah. It's beautiful. A beautiful mush. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for spending the time to chat about creative process and writing narratives for audio. If people, they're going to go listen to the Bright Sessions, obviously, if they haven't. Where else should they go look for you and your work?
Yeah, you can just go to laurenshippen.com or atypicalartist.co to see the shows that I've worked on. I'm also on Blue Sky and on Tumblr. Those are the only 2 bits of social media that I am still on. So come find me on Tumblr. That's really where I hang out these days.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you. This is so fun.
In the description, you'll find a link to Reese Hopper's Creative Consistency Challenge, and if you have an interest in content marketing, you can sign up for my newsletter down there too. Now it's time for me to close my sketchbook, and for you to open yours.